anger. I do love myself. Therefore, I will not be angry with anyone or anything. If I do, it means that they are controlling my life instead. Anger releases chemical, adrenaline and cortisol in our body and may cause fatal sickness. Allow myself to be angry for only 1 minute or less just to recognize myself as a human.
All right, let's dive right into this explainer. What if I told you we need to completely reframe how we look at one of our absolute most intense emotions? We almost always think of anger as this inherently bad thing, right? Like it's just this ugly emotion that needs to be shoved down and hidden away so we can act perfectly polite. But today, we're flipping the script. We are going to reframe anger not as some monster to be crushed, but as a completely observable phenomenon. And if you manage it correctly, it can actually become a tool to protect your inner peace. Think about it like a fire. This is going to be our core metaphor here. On one hand, a fire in the fireplace provides warmth, right? It gives you that drive and energy you sometimes need to enact real positive change in your life. But if you just leave that exact same fire completely unchecked, well, it's going to burn your house down. The real secret isn't running around trying to put out every fire forever. True inner peace comes when you learn to just observe that fire, to feel its heat, without actually letting it consume you. So to pull this off, we are building a really practical 4-step toolkit today. The 90-second rule, owning your hidden emotions, understanding before judging, and finally, releasing the need for justice. Let's start right at the foundation with part 1, the 90-second rule, or how to wait out that initial chemical surge. 90. That number is absolutely crucial. Science tells us that the initial intense chemical surge of anger rushing through your bloodstream literally only lasts for about 90 seconds. That is it, a minute and a half. So if you are still absolutely fuming an hour later, well, that's no longer the initial biological reaction. Anything you feel after that 90-second mark is just your own brain actively throwing logs on the fire, refueling it with stories and justifications about how wronged you were. Picture this in the real world for a second. You're driving, minding your own business, and someone aggressively cuts you off. Boom, 0 seconds. That's the trigger. You get that massive, hot surge of adrenaline. By about 45 seconds, your physical reaction is hitting its absolute peak, heart pounding, gripping the steering wheel. But watch what happens at 90 seconds. The chemical wave breaks, and right there, at that exact moment, you are standing at a crossroads. You can choose to take a breath and stay peaceful, or you can start honking, screaming, and completely ruin your mood for the rest of your commute. So how do we actually survive that timeline? It comes down to application. When you feel that sudden, undeniable heat of anger, commit yourself to a minute and a half of this routine. Step 1, acknowledge it. Feel the heat. Step 2, and this is the hard part, absolutely commit to doing and saying nothing. No honking, no shouting, definitely do not hit send on that draft email. And step 3, just breathe. If you can simply wait out that peak, you literally save yourself from being miserable for the next hour. All right, moving into our second tool, moving our language from you to I, which is really all about the piece of ownership. You know, when we get mad, our immediate default is usually to point the finger, right? You did this, or you are so wrong. But honestly, all that does is instantly launch a defensive battle. Taking ownership, though, that completely changes the whole dynamic. Let's say your partner forgets a really important date. Exploding and calling them selfish just traps you both in a fight. But if you take a breath and say, I feel really hurt and unimportant when this is forgotten, you bypass the battle entirely. You're addressing the actual hurt directly, which totally opens the door to a peaceful resolution. It helps to think of these emotions like layers. Anger is really just this thick, tough outer armor. It's what everyone else sees, and it's what you project to keep yourself safe. But if you take a second to look at the softer stuff sitting underneath that anger, you're almost always going to find something way more vulnerable. It's usually hurt, fear, or a sense of powerlessness. The anger is just a bodyguard for those feelings, and just recognizing that is a massive step toward getting your peace back. Okay, tool number 3 tackles a super common yet totally false assumption we make every single day. We have to seek to understand before we jump to judging. Anger loves the assumption that someone inconvenienced you on purpose. Imagine a coworker completely ignores an urgent email. Our brain naturally jumps straight to, wow, they are blatantly disrespecting me, and that just pours gasoline on the fire. But what if we chose an alternative? What if we chose to believe that maybe they're simply clumsy, incredibly overwhelmed, or just struggling with something private? Giving people the benefit of the doubt isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about preserving your own peace of mind, regardless of what their actual deal is. To actually make that mental shift from judging to understanding, there is one fantastic, simple trigger you can use. Whenever someone triggers you, pause and just ask yourself, what else could this mean? That's it. Just asking that one question totally interrupts your brain's anger narrative and forces you to hunt for a more compassionate, peaceful explanation. And finally, part 4. We really need to talk about that overwhelming urge to be the teacher. We've got to release the need for corrective justice.
We hold on to so much anger because we genuinely feel like the other person needs to be taught a lesson, don't we? We want to correct their bad behavior. But the wild thing is, we trick ourselves into believing our anger is somehow punishing them. The absolute reality, holding on to that rage, is only drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only destroys our own tranquility. Let's ground this. Say you run into a spectacularly rude store clerk. Your immediate gut instinct is probably to get mad, demand a manager, and teach them a lesson about customer service. Honestly, it feels like justice. But look at the alternative. You realize their miserable day has absolutely zero to do with you. You let the universe handle their karma, and you simply walk out the door. By doing that, you keep your entire afternoon peaceful. You are literally proving that your peace of mind is worth way more than making sure a stranger learns a lesson. So here is the ultimate takeaway from this explainer. Inner calm is entirely in your hands. It is a deliberate, conscious choice you make, completely independent of all the chaotic actors, the rude clerks, the bad drivers, and the forgotten emails swirling around in the world. Their behavior does not have to dictate your state of mind, not unless you hand over the keys and give them the power to do so. As we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one thought to chew on. The very next time you feel that 90-second chemical heat starting to rise in your chest, the next time someone cuts you off or totally ignores you, are you going to let that fire burn your house down? Or will you choose peace? Think about it. Thanks for exploring this with me today, and I'll catch you next time.